Much for giving us the time today. My name is Harmony Lloyd. I'm the Vice President of Planning and Innovation at SMART in Metro Detroit. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Michigan Public Transit Association. So I get the more fun task today of going into a little bit about what transit agencies are doing. And I tried to touch on some of the ones that are in your areas so that you can just see some highlights. I, again, could spend all day on this, but just some highlights of the work of what local bus operating really does. What does that mean at a day-to-day level? So covering this, and a lot of it has been covered, but there is some level of public transportation in all 83 counties in Michigan. Some cover the entire county, others it may be just the main city, and the out-county areas are not covered. But even despite lacking a train system or rail system, we do about 125,000 rides every day, so that equals about 47 million trips a year that are being done on public transit. So it does affect a huge number of Michiganders. So when you look at public transit, often people only think of the big bus. There's so much more to us than that. There are the big buses. That's a key part of what we do. There's also the smaller vehicles. I hope maybe you saw us last month when we were here with a variety of the vehicles so that you could see how many ways that we deliver transit, and are always looking at ways to be more effective and to cut costs by using smaller vehicles when it makes sense. Ferries, as Jean touched on, and then fixed guideway, which you know as the Q line in Detroit. So who is contributing? And she covered this too. Federal funding is focused on the capital, so that's really, they're going to help with the buses, not the operating costs. State, which we've talked a lot about, and then the local funding, millages and fares. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how millages work together with local bus operating to help the transit agencies be able to do new things and provide additional service. Who depends on transit? We were originally going to list just kind of all the different use cases of people who use transit, people going to school, people with disabilities, but you can figure that out yourself. I mean, the honest answer is all of us in some way either use it or know somebody who does, or work at a place where people depend on transit to get to your business or your doctor's office. I heard somebody say this the other day, and it stuck in my mind. Anyone who is riding transit is going somewhere to either spend money, to make money, or to learn to earn money. And when I first heard it, I said, I don't know if that's true, but I kept going through all of the different people I know that are using transit, and they really do fall into one of those three buckets. And so we are both literally and figuratively an economic driver. And I think that's important to remember when you talk about the cost per passenger, because those people are going to put money back into the economy one way or the other. And so it definitely has an economic impact in your community when people are able to use transit. So a couple agencies that I just want to highlight. Roscommon, this is an example of an agency in a more rural area. There is no hospital in Roscommon, but seniors make up 35% of the population. And so LBO funds are used for transportation for seniors. They found that there was a huge need that wasn't being met for seniors who were being discharged from the hospitals in counties surrounding Roscommon, but had no way to get home. And so they began doing medical transportation where they would be able to go to any county and pick up residents and bring them back home. This has been enormously popular. They added 2 more vehicles just to help meet the need for this service, and did over 65,000 rides in 2024, which for a rural county is a significant number, and obviously made a huge difference to many, many people in the county. In Oakland County, you all are aware that in 2022, there was a countywide millage passed. And one of the, been a lot of exciting developments with that millage and the money that it then was able to leverage at the state level. But the funding really helped expand service in some of the northern and western areas of Oakland County that previously had not been served or had been served at a minimal level. NODA and WODA, which Representative Steele mentioned earlier, have grown enormously since the millage passed, and I think these numbers are pretty incredible. The increases just in the past year, NODA ridership increased by 155%, WODA 177%, and People's Express 192%. So if you want to talk about pent-up demand, it clearly was there, and the services are being utilized. And I know from talking to the people that live in those areas, they love the service, they're using it, they appreciate it. And WODA and NODA, if they had the resources, could continue to grow and offer even more, and that would have the need. In the Holland-Zeeland area is served by a system called MAX. They did about 240,000 rides in 2024. They recently did a community-wide study to talk to their riders and figure out where those gaps were. Somebody asked about what the challenges were. So Max really worked to understand where the needs were that weren't being met. And what they found was that 51% of their riders were going to work, and that their hours were not working for the early shift workers. So those first shift workers that had to get there early were not able to. And so based on that feedback, Max made some adjustments and expanded its weekday hours to accommodate earlier shift workers. And it's my understanding that's been very successful. So they are still one of the agencies that's struggling with finding drivers, and they're working hard to do that. But they have been able to meet this need. And I wanted to point that out because I want you to know at the transit agency level, we're constantly looking at different ways that we can meet different needs. And we are very willing to make adjustments to our service to make sense that what we're doing is needed and it's fitting the needs best. In Ann Arbor, in May of '24, they opened the Washtenaw Express route. This connected, which was a long time coming, an express route between Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor, and really opened the door for a lot of job opportunities that previously had not been available for transit users. Since the launch, so just roughly a year, they've done 84,000 rides. So again, that really tells you that the demand was there, and just by putting this one route out there, they were able to address it and meet that need. And people are using it, and they're using it to get to work. So going back to that, they're going to make money idea. In Battle Creek and Calhoun, I don't think anybody on here serves that area, but I thought this was so interesting. They did a year-long pilot, one of the grants that was funded by MDOT that you heard Jean mention, to look at what the demand countywide would be for an on-demand type of a service. They ended up providing 33,000 trips, but had 150,000 trips that were requested and weren't able to be provided. So those numbers are incredible and show how much the people in Battle Creek and Calhoun County needed that service and wanted it. And so as a result of that and some other things, they did have a transit authority board who proposed a millage, and that millage passed with nearly 60% of the vote. So, you know, what you've heard and what's true is that the local communities are very willing to put in their fair share, and they're just looking for an additional bit of support to combine with that local share to be able to provide comprehensive services. And finally, SMART, my agency, also was affected by the Oakland County millage, but also just continued growth in Macomb County and Wayne County. We've been able to expand routes in all three counties. And some of the stats that I thought were interesting, with the new routes that we've put in, we've provided new access that previously wasn't there for 118,000 additional residents, and transit now reaches an additional 90,700 jobs. So again, that economic driver, putting people in the bus so that they can then get to work or get to school. We added 310 new bus stops to improve rider safety and experience, really make it easy for all users, but especially people that may have a disability. And we've developed a plan to continue that expansion throughout the entire Metro Detroit area over the next several years. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague to talk about the less fun stuff.
Sure. Thank you. Again, my name is John Dulmes. I'm the director of the MPTA. And I want to talk about some of the funding issues and just maybe some solutions as well. So credit to True, Megan's group here, who have this graph, but this is showing basically the state funding share for local transit and its decline over time. So just as you see roads crumbling, we want to illustrate the fact that transit in some cases is being very destabilized. And the budget drop combined with the increase in local expenses and the increased demand that's wanting that resources and the need out there has led to this drop. And next year is going to be very difficult for many agencies who are looking at potential cuts. They've also heard that a lot of other people locally that provide transportation, could be seniors, could be education, could be medical, they're all cutting back too, and they're looking to the local transit to step forward. And they say, well, we would love to, but we need to figure out some solutions. So what it looks like is, less service, less hours, maintaining the service at the level that people want. If you have to wait an hour for the bus to come, you're probably going to walk or find some other way to get there. It's just not always viable in those kind of situations. This is the graph of how the money flows through, just one way of representing it. But again, 10% traditionally of all state transportation funding going into the CTF, half of that about going into LBO, and then that making its way into the budgets. We think that full funding of it is about $400 million per year into the CTF, $200 million a year additional into LBO for our current system. We're not talking building monorails or things that would be really maybe neat to have, helpful to have in some cases. It's just making the buses really run in a positive, on-time way. I do want to share that the package that the House put forward did include some through the formula that included 10% for the CTF. But when you look at the net effects of the sales tax on fuel, it only led to about $50 million net increase for CTF, which is shared so many other ways before it gets to your transit agencies. So I do want to give you credit for putting forward a road funding solution, but it's not quite a transportation funding solution. It didn't do enough anywhere near the amount to help transit meet the needs. And as a history lesson, going back to 1997, the gas tax increase there went to roads and bridges, did not go fully to transit. 2015 income tax, $600 million a year from income tax, goes to roads, does not go to transit. 2018, marijuana taxes went to roads, not to transit. And as you know, 2020, the bonding program went to state roads, not to local roads, none to transit. There is already $1 billion approximately a year that goes straight to roads and bridges without transit share. So to say that let's fix roads and bridges by not including transit, I don't think is actually a genuine solution. Here are some solutions we do want to put forward. Making sure that there is a share about that 10%, I think is a pretty fair, equitable share. Just note that if you're eliminating the sales tax on fuels, that does hit the CTF. There is a bill out there, Morgan's 4210. It's a revenue neutral shift to the CTF that could be potentially very significant, part of the conversation. And then the last thing I would note again, when your voters get a chance to vote on public transit, 90% of local millage questions, including in Battle Creek, 2.66 mills, November general election ballot, 60% supported. So I'll leave it there. If there's questions, thank you to the chair.
I think we're good. So thank you, Harmony and John, for your testimony. I appreciate it. And we're going to take one more and try to end by 1 o'clock.